Ciao friends and welcome back to 2sex Ted. No cold open today because over the weekend we learnt about the passing of Murrary Walker. Murray was the voice of not just Formula 1 but motorsports in the UK and around the world for many decades. He defined what it meant to commentate on motorsports and ignited the passions of so many in the sport today. Murray retired in 2001 and lived another 20 years, passing away at 97. He will be deeply missed by the whole community. But Murray only ever wanted to share his passion for motorsports. And there's one thing he loved more than anything else, which was fast cars going around race circuits. And over the last 3 days, we've got to see that once again in Formula 1. 3 days of testing in Bahrain are now complete. Each day was 2 4-hour sessions. Each of the teams choosing to run 3 of those sessions for each of their main drivers, apart from Williams, who chose to run Roy Nissany on Friday, giving Nicholas Latifi and George Russell 1 day each. This does mean that Roy Nissany has truly decimated his father's record in Formula 1. Chandok Nissany didn't even make it to the end of his first practice session before being fired. So Roy has vastly exceeded expectations. Presumably, Nissany has quite a lot of money, and Williams was given some of it so that Roy could have an entire day of testing to himself. Williams have brought a significant number of upgrades to the test. This year's car, like everyone else's, is just a development of last year's, but it is a significant upgrade. Unlike Haas, who haven't even spent their development tokens for the season, with the VF21 being abandoned before it even had the chance to race. Haas say they're just going to use this year as a way to get their rookies embedded in the car, being not only the only team with 2 new drivers, but also 2 new rookies. So they're focusing on next year's car and just making sure Mick and Nikita get settled in. The risk, of course, being that they come last in the championship and lose out on prize money, but considering they've been second to last the last couple of years, it probably won't be that big of a deal. Alfa Romeo have, on the other hand, been working on their car quite a lot. Of course, they also have the new Ferrari power unit, like Haas do and the factory team. The Alfa Romeo impressing with its new nose and its incredible straight line speed. I have to wonder if they're chasing an SF90 kind of philosophy, where the power is just making up for the aerodynamics at tracks where that matters. Including Bahrain, because unlike most seasons where F1 tests in Spain, this year was of course Bahrain, which is a power circuit. So that is always something to keep in mind when comparing these results to previous years and comparing cars between each other. Alfa Romeo logged the highest number of laps, joint with AlphaTauri. AlphaTauri also have a rookie driver in Yuki Tsunoda, who does seem to be settling into the car quite well, posting some incredibly fast times on the 3rd day of testing, as well as retaining Pierre Gasly, who of course won a race with them last year. Of course that race was at Monza, another power circuit. So it's possible that AlphaTauri's performance has been somewhat inflated by the venue that testing has taken place at, although I am very excited to see what they do this season. Both of their drivers seem confident and fast, and their car, which was already reasonably good, although bottom of the midfield, the direction they've taken with their car since last year seems to have helped it quite significantly, and it might mean that AlphaTauri make it into the meat of the midfield this season. Hopefully the same is also true for Ferrari. They have this new power unit for this year, and they believe they have clawed back all of the deficit that they lost for 2020. That still doesn't mean it's the most powerful engine on the grid, because Honda and Mercedes and Renault have all been able to build on their engines which weren't underpowered last year. But it's also possible that Ferrari have actually been chasing more downforce this year instead of power, so it might mean that they're not great at Bahrain, but they're better at downforce-focused tracks. They did get a bit unlucky on that front last year, with Hungary being the only super downforce-limited track that we went to, due to the lack of street circuits in the pandemic. Ferrari, of course, like all of the teams in the midfield, want to be battling at the front of the midfield. Whether or not that's true is a bit of an unknown quantity at this time, although Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc both seem to be getting on well in the car. Carlos Sainz, of course, joining the team for this year, with Charles Leclerc noting that he'd talked to Carlos Sainz more than he ever had his previous 2 teammates in F1. Hopefully Carlos Sainz's experience at multiple teams will help Ferrari develop this car, and of course their next car. Alpine also have a new driver for this year in Fernando Alonso, returning to the sport after a 2-year absence in which he won Le Mans, and then didn't win the Indy 500. He seems to be embedding himself back in the team quite well, of course this being his third stint at the Enstone-based team. He did comment that the team is in a much better shape than it was when he left about 10 years ago. Alpine have done something interesting. Due to them being the only team left running a Renault engine, they have reconfigured that engine so that they can have smaller side pods by moving a significant amount of the cooling potential to the airbox up top. This means that the airbox profile is quite wide, but the side pods are much smaller. Alpine have said that this will increase airflow over the floor and into the diffuser, which should help with downforce and help negate the effects of the added weight up top. McLaren also have a new driver in Daniel Ricciardo, who seems to be embedding himself in the team quite well as well. Both Lando and Daniel seem to be getting on quite well, posted a fair number of laps, and McLaren didn't seem to have any reliability issues. Of course, with them bringing in a spoon nose last year and then spending their development tokens on the Mercedes upgrade, it should be a good season for them, but of course we wait and see. Red Bull too have a new driver, Sergio Perez, who has been getting to grips with the RB16B. Red Bull have been working on the instability problems at the rear of the car, and seemingly in testing so far that has helped. Honda also working full steam on the engine this year. They haven't scaled back their operation despite the fact that they're leaving the sport at the end of this year. Hopefully all of that put together means that Checo and Max should get on reasonably well this year. Toto Wolff giving his usual speech that Red Bull might even be faster than Mercedes. Which brings me on to Mercedes and also Aston Martin, because quite frankly, everything that is new on the Mercedes is pretty much also new on the Aston. The bumps that Williams and McLaren have integrated differently on their car are basically the same on both the Mercedes and the Aston. The new floor layout is fairly similar on the Mercedes and the Aston, which makes sense considering that they're both based on the W10, Mercedes' 2019 car. And just to take this to a whole nother level, on Friday, Bottas lost a gearbox, and the very next day, Sebastian Vettel lost one himself. Both of them running the same Mercedes spec gearbox. I believe that is from last year as well. If you think back to Austria last year, Mercedes did have concerns over their gearbox reliability. So that is one to keep an eye out for as the season progresses. Mercedes, for a good number of years now, have topped the sheets in terms of lap count. This year was the exact opposite. They came 10th. Last place. They logged the fewest laps of anyone, with Lewis Hamilton in fact spinning the car twice. So it does seem that despite expectations, it's very possible that Mercedes may not be as flawless as we may have expected. Mercedes, however, are the only team that didn't run any kind of shakedown or filming day session prior to testing in Bahrain. They're doing that this week. So that is your recap for testing for 2021. The season gets underway very, very shortly indeed. Seems like good news coming out of most teams on the grid, basically everyone except Haas. But what do you think? Who are you most excited to see in their new teams or with their new cars for this year? Who do you think's going to win the championship? Are you still Team Lewis? Do you think Max can nab it? Or maybe you think Valtteri can do it? You never know. Tell me down in the comments below. Since my previous video, we have managed to hit 300 subscribers, so thank you all very much for being here. If you are new and haven't yet subscribed, please consider doing that down below. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I will see you on Thursday.